Oasis were one of the most popular and influential bands of the past 20 years, taking the world by storm during the mid-90s and gaining both critical and commercial success in a 15-year period. Massive tours, albums and singles saw them cement themselves in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hailing from the dangerous streets of Manchester with an abusive family, Liam and Noel Gallagher didn't seem to be set out for success. Noel became a roadie for the Inspiral Carpets during their world tour before coming home to Manchester. When he returned, younger brother Liam had joined the band despite showing no interest in music beforehand. Liam became the singer for an early band with the other founding members, Paul Bonehead Arthurs, Tony McCarroll and Paul Quigsy McGuigan. Before this, Bonehead's band was known as The Rain, and they didn't really achieve much. Noel transformed them into something different musically, simplifying the drum beats, bass lines and guitar riffs. After getting signed on to Creation Records by Alan McGee, Oasis had finally made it from the seeming hopelessness of Manchester. Their first album came out on August 29th, 1994, and it was called Definitely Maybe. If there was a song to understand Oasis and kick in the door for people who haven't listened to them, it would be Rock and Roll Star. It features Liam's signature high, nasally voice, singing in an angry manner. Noel and Bonehead play incredibly loud, thrashing and simplistic guitars, which hit very hard and are very memorable. The guitars are so loud you can't even hear the bass. The drumming is quite loud, punky and unrefined, which fits perfectly from Tony McCarroll. The lyrics are a rant about the life the Gallaghers probably dreamed of, being big stars for their music and not being able to handle the new lifestyle, all in a short verse which features the iconic. Overall, it's a definitive Oasis song and just really good, well, rock and roll. My only issue with the song is that I think it could use with being cut down by a few minutes. The last few minutes of Liam shouting are quite annoying and I don't think it needed to be there.
Shaker Maker feels like a spiritual sequel to Rock and Roll Star. It features Liam singing an incredibly high tone of voice, loud distorted guitars that cover the bass, and more lyrics of the same vein. But instead of being a rant about the life of a rock star, Shaker Maker is more nonsensical and dreamy. The song is sung with a lot of melody. If you've heard the song before, you might notice something strange about it. It kind of sounds similar. And you'd be right. The song directly borrows from I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing, and Liam often sings the verse from that when he performs it live, to take the piss out of Coca-Cola, who sued the band for $500,000. The verse also features one of my favourite Oasis parts. I know it doesn't sound like much, but something about it is so catchy and strikes a chord with me. A similar complaint I have with Rock and Roll Star, I feel like it could have ended sooner than later, and sometimes the verse seemed to be spaced out just incorrectly. Although it doesn't have an overly long outro unlike Rock and Roll Star. So overall it's a good song, one of my favourites off the album and from Oasis. Live Forever is one of the most iconic songs of the Britpop movement and one of the band's most memorable to date. I have never heard anyone who dislikes this song. Liam has said it's his favourite Oasis song and Noel has taken pride in it. The song shows an incredibly bright and optimistic view of the world, and particularly the surroundings the Gallaghers were born into. Although it comes off as happy with its melody and instrumental, the lyrics more or less seem to find happiness in the backdrop of hopelessness and depression. It's a song for when you need to stand up. This clashed with the popular grunge music of the time. Noel wrote the song as a response to hearing that Nirvana had a song called I Hate Myself and Want to Die, so he wrote the exact opposite. Musically, it's a standard Oasis song with simple, effective chords. However, the bass does shine through at moments, although the solo can be tricky. However, the drums here stand out. They kick off the track, are incredibly memorable and elevate the song. It's a great song, one of the best in the album, and one of the best Oasis ever made. I once read a review claiming Definitely Maybe had two songs that everyone skips, Up in the Sky being one of them. And if there was a weakest track on this record, it is Up in the Sky. It's still a good song though, and that stands to the quality of this album.
Up in the Sky is a very upbeat, jingly song. The guitars here kind of sound like tape being peeled, so the song has an out there aesthetic. The lyrics paint a rather optimistic picture of people learning to fly, and Liam sings it in an incredibly high manner, like higher than usual. So while I don't have a lot to say about this track, it's still a solid song. One word that summarizes the song is confusion. It features in the verse, aesthetic, and almost every aspect of the song. It paints that feeling inside your head. The distorted guitars create this kind of fog, with Liam's layered vocals creating the same effect. This is the furthest Oasis ever experimented musically, more or less having a shoegaze influence on the song. The verse mostly repeats. And but the rest of the song also shine through with them solid rhythmic lyrics. Something else to take note of is that this is the first Oasis song Liam wrote, at least according to Tony McCarroll. Tony claims Liam came up with it during a rehearsal before Noel joined the band. However, you have to take that with a grain of salt, of course. The outro features Liam singing. Which for such a basic thing works very well. A very good song overall.
Supersonic is a powerful beast of a song. The hardest I think Liam and Noel rocked on a song ever. All of the band clicked really well to create the sound. It starts with Tony McCarroll's signature punky drumming before Noel uses the guitar technique known as the pick scratch. A general note to make is that from the intro to the verse to the solos, this song is guitar glory. Both Noel and Bonehead's guitar parts are so simple but effective. It makes you feel powerful just listening to it. For many, Oasis were the band that made them want to play guitar. If it was a song like Wonderwall, Morning Glory, Talk Tonight or Live Forever, Oasis opened the gateway for many to begin guitar. For me, the Oasis song that did it was this one. From the minute I heard it, I wanted to play it on guitar. The lyrics venture into some of Noel's best songwriting, with iconic, memorable lyrics like I'm feeling supersonic, give me gin and tonic. You can have it all, but how much do you want it? You can sail with me in my yellow submarine. You need to find out, 'cause no one's gonna tell you what I'm on about. I know a girl called Elsa, she's into apple seltzer. She sniffs it through a cane on a supersonic train. All of these lyrics are incredibly memorable and stick with the listener. The one downside is that Quigsy never gets a moment to shine over the guitars. This was Oasis's first single, and the story behind it is actually quite funny. Oasis had only recently been signed to Creation Records and were straining to put out a new single. While the rest of the band were sent out to get a Chinese, Noel went into another room in the studio and wrote Supersonic in that time period. When the rest got back and heard about it, they went into the studio and recorded it all in one night. And it worked well. It was a song that took Oasis from up-and-comers to giants, waiting to grow more and more. Bring It On Down was going to be Oasis's first single, and it's easy to see why. It is some of the hardest Oasis thrashes on any of their records. It features some very thrashy lyrics like the guitar matches the tone Liam sets with heavy distortion and an incredible amount of power behind each and every strum. Overall, a pretty underrated song. This is probably the most rebellious Oasis get on this album. The song is about the feeling I would assume Liam and Noel got growing up in a place like Manchester. The feeling of having nothing in life, being poor and on welfare, but your one escape is drinking and smoking. Both of them just help you forget what's going on around you. Lyrically, this has to be one of my favourite Oasis songs, featuring iconic lines like is it my imagination or the finest
and
To find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for.
the guitars pound harder on this one, with a sort of buzzing going on in the background. It creates this incredibly heavy sound along with the drums that make this song so effective. Overall, a top tier song and one of my favourites from Oasis, and definitely maybe. If the last track was the most rebellious, this is the most corny. Not a bad thing though. Daisy's Dinner is a song about impressing a girl and taking her out to get lasagna and her friends getting jealous because of it. Or that's how it would seem. Alan McGee claimed that the song is actually a piss take of the Britpop movement of the time, like Suede and Blur. However, I choose not to believe that. The song itself is so stupid when you break it down, but something about it is just so charming. This is the only song Liam refuses to perform live, and it's not hard to see why. The song doesn't rock as hard as most of the album, but it's still really enjoyable. Slide Away is the conventional Oasis song musically, with the sturdy guitars, unhearable bass and unrefined pounding drumming. Liam's voice is ever the same, but the lyrics are what set the song apart. This is the album's love song, as you can see in the lyrics. Overall, it's a good song that stands out. It's a lot more coherent than most Oasis songs lyrically. The outro features Liam singing, which is really catchy and elevates the mood of things a lot. The After Party. Calming down after the noise and rock and roll of Definitely Maybe is over. The song is about Noel's then girlfriend before he got famous. She was annoyed at his guitar playing and left him, thinking he'd getting nowhere. The song is from her perspective though, but it perfectly describes life in retirement and a hatred for youth that one used to mirror. The song is a very stripped down acoustic song that seems to be played off tune to create a rickety guitar sound. It's the perfect end to the roller coaster. So that was Definitely Maybe. It's one of my favourite albums of all time, and it has had a huge influence. The album toppled the Beatles' Please Please Me as the fastest selling debut record in British history. I give this album a 10 out of 10, although if you listen to it on full volume you might go deaf.